January 6th or Kamala Harris's laugh or whether she's got children or not. That is the message every Republican politician and strategist would like him to run on. Will he do that? We don't know. He might talk about the debates. The Washington Post is reporting that he's going to call maybe today, but soon for a debate and open it up to say not necessarily on Fox. It could be on ABC or NBC. He could talk about the military record of Kamala Harris's running mate, Governor Walz of Ohio. And we're going to talk about that for sure, because that is something that has been coming up a lot. So I want to start with that just because there's a new element out there. And I want to bring in David Urban, who's a Republican who has been a supporter of President Trump, supporting him in this election, and also has served America in the military. David, welcome.
Hey, Mark.
Hey, so I want to show everybody a video that's on Twitter of Tim Walz as a congressman talking about his military service. So let's put that video up. I want to show it to everybody. We'll continue to watch the podium, and we'll cut away from anything we're doing when the press conference starts. But go ahead and put that video up, and let's play it. And then David Urban's going to tell us what he thinks is significant about it. So stand by. Go ahead and spotlight that video, and go ahead and play it. Oh, wait a minute.
Hello, everyone. I'm Congressman Tim Walz. It's a real honor to be able to pay tribute to the 34th Red Bull Infantry Division and to your families and friends as you prepare to deploy in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom. As a 24-year veteran of the National Guard and the Red Bull Division and a retired Command Sergeant Major, I'm especially proud of you. You are continuing a long and great tradition service by the citizen soldiers of the 34th.
All right, David Urban, why is that significant to you?
Yeah, so just for those of you who don't know my background, so I went to West Point, served in the military for more than a few years, including Operation Desert Storm way back in the day. I am not questioning his patriotism or his service. I think that Tim Walz served honorably and longly. I don't even know if it's the word. I just made it
for
up.
A long period of time.
For a long period of time. Listen, he's got 24 years of honorable service. And interestingly, Tim Walz was promoted. He was an E9, which is a very senior rank, enlisted rank in the military. Nothing to be the least bit ashamed about. An E9 is a very serious senior rank. You've been in the military a long time. You know what you're doing. You have a lot of responsibility. It's no shame to be an E8 in the military. Quite proud to be an E8 in the military. But the problem that Tim Walz ran into and keeps running into and needs to fix is that Tim Walz was promoted to E9, which is Sergeant Major, Command Sergeant Major title, which is like getting promoted to general. And with that comes a requirement of some schooling. You need to go to the Sergeant Major's Academy. And with it also requires a time in rank requirement. You have to serve in that rank for a period of time. I think, and I'm pretty certain that Governor Walz did neither of those things. He did not serve the time required in that rank. So let's say it's a year, 2 years, 3 years. He didn't require the required time. And then secondly, and most importantly, he didn't go to the Sergeant Major Academy, which he needs to do. So when he left the service, his record reflects that he is an E8. If you look at his DD 214, which is his official military record, what the military says you are, I believe it says E8 Master Sergeant. So Governor Walz is a smart guy who's been in the service 20 plus years. He should not be saying that he's a retired Command Sergeant Major when his retirement papers clearly show that he is a retired Master Sergeant. It's like saying you're a retired general when you're really a retired colonel. The distinction is that significant. Maybe he didn't think that there was a distinction without a difference back when he ran for Congress and he got kind of caught up in it. I'm not quite sure why he would feel the need to embellish his record. He had a very honorable record, but the fact that he has not answered this, that he has not come out and said, hey, I misspoke. I should have said Governor Walz could say the following: I was promoted to Command Sergeant Major. I attained the rank of Command Sergeant Major. He can't say I retired as a Command Sergeant Major. That's just factually not correct. And I think he needs to clean it up, and he needs to clean it up quickly because it's something that's not going away and it's only getting worse. So,
David, why isn't this just an innocent mistake?
and Mark, again, when you serve, I don't know if there's anybody on these calls that served in the military, even for a week. If you were a corporal, you don't say you're a sergeant. If you're a sergeant, you don't say you're a master sergeant. If you're a colonel, or if you're a major, you don't say you're a colonel. So it is just one of those things that's blustery, and it speaks to his character. Why would you feel the need to embellish that as a military man? He didn't need to. He had an honorable record. He could have just rested on the fact that he was an E8 master sergeant and not puffed up his record. And it is something in the military that you do not do. You don't wear ribbons you're not allowed to wear. You don't say you served in a combat theater. You didn't serve in, he's saying that people are splitting hairs on whether he served in support of Operation Enduring Freedom or if he served in Operation Enduring Freedom. I know people think this is, it's just inside baseball. It matters to millions of Americans who served in the military. It matters.
John Podortz is here too. He and I have been communicating about this for a while. David, and again, we're watching the podium. The minute press conference starts, we'll go. Here he is. All right.
Well, thank you very much.
Go to President Trump. Guys, stay with us if you want. And you can comment during the
before I talk about debates. I think that our country is right now in the most dangerous position it's ever been in from an economic standpoint, from a safety standpoint. Both gangs on the street and, frankly, gangs outside of our country in the form of other countries that are, frankly, very powerful. They're very powerful countries, and we don't know what we're doing. We have leadership that has no clue how to handle them or how to handle any other situation. We have a lot of bad things coming up. You could end up in a depression of the 1929 variety, which would be a devastating thing. Took many years, took decades to recover from it. And we're very close to that, and we're very close to a world war. In my opinion, we're very close to a world war. We have people that don't know how to handle it. They're not respected. All over the world, they're laughed at. And we can't have that. Most dangerous period of time I've ever seen for our country. With that being said, we have somebody that hasn't received one vote for president, and she's running, and that's fine with me. But we were given Joe Biden, and now we're given somebody else. And I think, frankly, I'd rather be running against somebody else. But that was their choice. They decided to do that because Kamala's record is horrible. She's a radical left person at a level that nobody's seen. She picked a radical left man that is, he's got things done that he has positions that are just it's not even possible to believe that they exist. He's going for things that nobody's ever even heard of. Heavy into the transgender world, heavy into lots of different worlds having to do with safety. He doesn't want to have borders. He doesn't want to have walls. He doesn't want to have any form of safety for our country. He doesn't mind people coming in from prisons, and neither does she, I guess, because she's not... She couldn't care less. She's the border czar. By the way, she was the border czar 100%. And all of a sudden, for the last few weeks, she's not the border czar anymore, like nobody ever said it. And I just hope that the media becomes more diligent, more honest, frankly, because if they're not going to be honest, it's going to be much tougher to bring our country back. We have a very, very sick country right now. You saw the other day with the stock market crashing. That was just the beginning. That was just the beginning. It's going to get worse. It's going to get a lot worse, in my opinion. And fortunately, we've had some very good polls over the last fairly short period of time. Rasmussen came out today. We're substantially leading, and others came out today that we're leading, and in some cases substantially. I guess MSNBC came out, or CNBC came out also with a poll that was, has us leading. And leading fairly big in swing states. In some polls, I'm leading very big in swing states because they want safety. People want safety. They want security. They want respect all around the world for our country. They don't want this horrible culture that is developing, a culture of no common sense. It's really a culture of no common sense, and it's not what anyone wants. We want to have a safe country. We want to have a strong military. We want low interest rates, and we want to be able to have the American dream. We want to be able to have our youth be able to buy homes, housing, get good jobs. And we're really just at the opposite right now. It's so sad to see. But as a border czar, she's been the worst border czar in history, in the world history. I think the number is 20 million, but whether it's 15 or 20, it's numbers that nobody's ever heard before. 20 million people came over the border during the Biden-Harris administration. 20 million people, and it could be very much higher than that. Nobody really knows what the number is. Nobody knows. Nobody has a clue. And the gotaways, they call them the gotaways. The gotaways are at numbers. Somebody was quizzing me on it the other day. No, I don't think so, sir. I don't think so. They have no idea what those numbers are, but they're much higher than you would think. Just like far more people were killed in the Ukraine-Russia war than you ever report. Just like the October 7th would have never happened. Russia would have never hit Ukraine had the election result been called differently. It was a very bad call, but Russia would not have attacked Ukraine. October 7th in Israel would have never happened. You wouldn't have inflation. A lot of great things would have happened, but now you have millions and millions of dead people, and you have people dying financially because they can't buy bacon, they can't buy food, they can't buy groceries, they can't do anything. And they're living horribly in our country right now. With all of that being said, I think it's very important to have debates, and we've agreed with Fox on a date of September 4th. We've agreed with NBC, fairly full agreement, subject to them, on September 10th. And we've agreed with ABC on September 25th. So we have those three dates, and those networks, they're very anxiously awaiting that date and those dates. So we have September 4th, September 10th, and September 25th. We have spoken to the heads of the network, and it's all been confirmed, other than some fairly minor details. Audience, some location, which city would we put it into, but all things that will be settled very easily, I think it'll be very easy. The other side has to agree to the terms. They may or may not agree. I don't know if they're going to agree. She hasn't done an interview. She can't do an interview. She's barely competent, and she can't do an interview. But I look forward to the debates because I think we have to set the record straight. Why is it that millions of people were allowed to come into our country from prisons, from jails, from mental institutions, insane asylums, even insane asylums? It's a mental institution on steroids. That's what it is. When you see the people that are coming into these are institutions that are being emptied out, not in South America, all over the world, including South America, all over the world. Prisons are being emptied out into our country because we have a president that's the worst president in the history of our country. We have a vice president who is the least admired, least respected, and the worst vice president in the history of our country. The most unpopular vice president.
So far, this is right on message for him.
Political reasons or because of being politically correct, even though she never received a vote. Don't forget, she was the first one defeated, as I remember it, because I watched it very closely, but she was the first one. She never made it to Iowa, the first state. She never made it to Iowa. She was the first one that was defeated. She was the nastiest to him. She was nasty with calling him a racist and the school bus and all of the different things. She was very nasty to Biden. And shockingly, he appointed her, asked her to serve as vice president. Well, I don't know if he's happy about that decision right now. This was taken away. The presidency was taken away from Joe Biden. And I'm no Biden fan, but I'll tell you what, from a constitutional standpoint, from any standpoint you look at, they took the presidency away. And people were saying he lost after the debate. He couldn't win. Well, I don't know that that's true necessarily. But whether he could win or he couldn't win, he had the right to run. And they took it away. They said they're going to use the 25th Amendment. They're going to hit you hard. Either we can do it the nice. I know exactly, because I know a lot of people on the other side, believe it or not. And they said, we'll do it the nice way, or we'll do it the hard way. And he said, all right. So that, I mean, they've really taken what they've done is pretty incredible.
He's drifting a little bit. He's drifting a little.
And now
You
I'm
think?
running against somebody else, and we're leading.
Yeah.
We're leading. So I'm not complaining. I'm saying it's for a
No one's given him the
country with a
Marquette poll yet.
constitution that we cherish. We cherish this constitution. To have done it this way is pretty severe, pretty horrible. You would have thought they would have gone out to a vote. They would have had a primary system. They would have done something. But to just take it away from him like he was a child. And he's a very angry man right now, I can tell you that. He's not happy with Obama, and he's not happy with Nancy Pelosi, crazy Nancy. She is crazy, too. She's not
Feels
happy
like that
with
weren't
the
any
greatest
of the
hits.
people that
Weren't the
told
greatest
him that
hits.
you've got to leave. He's very unhappy, very angry, and I think he also blames her. He's trying to put up a good face, but it's a very bad thing in terms of a country when you do that. I'm not a fan of his, as you probably have noticed, and he had a rough debate, but that doesn't mean that you just take it away like that. Or you go out to a vote, you do something. He had 14 million votes. She had no votes. She got no votes. And I think she's crashing. I think when people find out, and I think people are starting to find out what a bad job she did, what a bad job she did on the border. She's trying to say she had nothing to do with the border. She had everything. She was appointed to head the border.
Back
and then
on
they
message.
said border czar, oh, she loved that name, she loved that name, but she never went there. She went to a location once along the border, but that was a location that you would love to go and have dinner with your husband or whoever. That was a location that was not part of the problem. That was not really going to the border. So essentially, she never went to the border. And if you listen to Tom Homan, if you listen to the great border people, Brandon Judd from Border Patrol, if you listen to Paul, I mean, so many different people. I speak to them all the time. And I did when
So
I was
many.
president. We had the best border in the history of our country. Now we have the worst border in the history of the world. Millions of people coming in, and our country cannot sustain it. Our country is going down because of this, because of incompetent people. So I just look forward to these debates. I think it's very important that we have them. I hope she agrees to them September 4th, September 10th, September 25th. And I think they'll be very revealing. I think they'll be very revealing. Do you have any questions, please?
What do you guys think so far? Pretty good for what they wanted executed, right?
I haven't
Under the
recalibrated
circumstances?
strategy.
Are you
at all.
serious?
It's the same
This is
policies.
terrible.
Open borders, weak on
Terrible.
crime.
Okay.
It's terrible.
I think she's worse
This
than
is
Biden.
near Biden
Because
level
he got
terrible.
forced into the
So
position.
I'm
The thing
looking at
is,
it.
Long
who's
before
actually
she destroyed
watching
San
the press
Francisco.
conference? Not
She
many people,
destroyed
right? So I think he'll get the
California as
headlines he
AG.
wants.
But as the DA, she
He can also
destroyed
hear and say he
she-
sounds like a
San
rambling old
Francisco,
man.
a friend of mine, Bob Tisch. You all know the.
I
Tisch
honestly don't know
family. He was
how
in many
anyone
cities
who
with
isn't
companies.
watching
He
8
said the
hours a
greatest
day
city
and reading, watching
in the
two-way
country
and
is
Twitter
San
ad
Francisco.
has any idea
That
what
was
he's
about 20
talking
years
about.
ago.
I talked to
And he
Tom.
passed
I
away
talked
a while
to
ago,
I
and
talked
we
to
would be
Phil. I
looking
talked to
down
a
and
lot
what
of people.
happened.
Phil and Tom. They
He thought
say
it
it's
was the best city in the country. He
Who?
had divisions there.
You've
Lowe's.
got a higher
And,
standard for him than I
he would
do.
be
Fair
looking
enough.
down in horror now when he sees she destroyed no cash bail, weak on crime. She's terrible.
There you go. That's what
And
he's
yet
supposed
they
to be saying.
weaponized the system against me. They have me. I got so many lawyers. Now they want to
Up
delay
grievance. Back
cases.
to
I won the
grievance.
big case in Florida. I won the big case. Nobody even wrote about it. The big case. The judge was a brilliant judge.
John, he won the big
And all
case.
they do is they play the ref with
Brilliant
the judges.
judge.
This judge was a fair but brilliant judge. And as you probably heard, the big documents
Fair
case, I
but
won it.
brilliant.
Now, Biden lost it because he didn't have presidential immunity. He didn't have the Presidential Records Act. He lost it. But the special, I call it prosecutor, special counsel, special prosecutor to me, he, appointed by him and appointed by Garland, he said the man's incompetent. He can't stand trial, but he can run for president. But we no longer have to worry about that because we have somebody that, in my opinion, is more incompetent. She couldn't pass her bar exam and lots of other things. And she should not be in a position because if she becomes president, our country is going to be a giant fail. It's going to fail. It's going to be a failure the likes of which this world has never seen. Yeah, please. No, how about you? You have to speak louder.
I can't believe, John, the level of perfection you're expecting from, or linear thought. I mean, he talked almost entirely about what he was supposed to talk about. No? Melissa, didn't he talk about what he was supposed to talk about?
He hit
Mostly?
mostly what he needed to talk
Well, it
about. But
changes
look,
around a
we're
little bit. I'm
watching
getting
this.
other
Nobody else
voters,
is watching this, right? It's just what will the news
perhaps,
off
you know,
of
I
this
was doing
be?
very well with black
And the news is
voters.
going to
Well,
be
the
the
news is-
challenge to the 3
I seem
debates,
to be doing
including the
very
one
well
on the
with,
September 10th.
black males.
And I think that's
Yeah.
the
This
headline,
is
right? And
according to
she's still
polls,
hiding
as
from the
you
press.
know.
So I think he's
Right.
It's
accomplishing what he needs
possible
to
that I won't
accomplish,
do as
even though he
well
sounds
with
rambly and a
black
little
women,
nuts at
but I
points.
do seem to be doing very well with other segments.
But he also
extremely
sent a
well with
signal
Hispanic,
to Republicans that he can talk about the
Jewish
economy
voters
and
way up.
immigration, which is what they want him to do.
Males way up. White males have gone through the roof. White males.
Does it matter
I
how?
don't know. All we're
Does
doing is
it
giving
does it
you
matter
the stats
how he
that you
talks
have.
about it?
It could be that I'll
Because
be affected somewhat
I
with.
am listening
black
to
females
this
where we're
and
doing pretty
thinking
well.
that
And
it's
I think ultimately they'll like me
a
better
free
because it would
associative
improve their security,
gobbledygook,
safety,
not,
and
oh
jobs.
my
So
God,
I'm
he's
gonna
really
give them
gonna,
good
he's talking
economy.
about the economy
We have
and the
a very
border.
bad economy right
He's
now.
like,
We
what?
could literally
Where
be on the
it?
throes of a
I don't
depression,
know.
not
I maybe
recession,
I am
depression.
over.
I
Maybe
mean, do you
I'm
think
I'm
he's
over it.
less linear
They
than
can't
when he
have
beat
that. So I
Hillary
think I'm going to
Clinton?
do well with everybody.
Yes.
It's always
When the
like
facts
this.
are right. Yeah, please in the
No.
back.
No. Okay. I think yes,
I
but
don't know.
I,
Here's my standard. He mentioned Bacon once and J6 0 times.
Well, I don't
Victory
know.
for
I know
Trump.
Josh Shapiro. He's
it's early
a
yet.
terrible
Let's see what.
guy, and
Yeah.
he's not
That's
very
right.
popular with
We haven't
anybody.
heard
I think
lawfare yet,
that
so we're not
this,
going down all the bingo cards.
No, we heard a little bit of
maybe is
lawfare.
A
better
little, but not the
than Josh
word
Shapiro would have
lawfare.
been. But I
Yeah.
think other than
Yeah.
Josh Shapiro, I think she had some good choices. But Josh Shapiro is not one of them. He's caused a lot of damage with a lot of people. And I don't think he would have been better. I think he would have been maybe the equivalent, maybe not as good. But they had some people that they were looking at that were good, far superior to her. They actually had a story where they had everybody, including, they had like 10 people that she was looking at and her. And they said she was the worst of all. In other words, she was the worst out of the 10 people and her.
Hogan, how's he doing so far? Got to unmute you. How's he
It's
doing?
very vintage Trump so far. Willing to take tough questions, doing a press conference, saying he's going to do debates, which I guess was the point of this, but also to show that he can stand up to the media where she can or won't, or both.
So
Yeah.
CBS will do vice presidential and
Do we know those dates are the real dates? He throw
They're
he
the,
threw
they're the dates
3 days,
he's
3
negotiated.
networks.
They're the dates he's negotiated with the networks. I don't know where
So
they
he's
stand
only
with
saying
her
he's not
debate.
doing the ABC debate, right? He's
No,
saying he's
He
doing.
said he would
No,
do
he's saying he'll do
ABC,
3.
NBC, and Fox. Yeah.
Yep. 3.
But he said the
Well,
ABC
right.
debate on a different day than originally negotiated.
Oh,
Originally,
okay,
the
okay.
ABC debate was negotiated for the 10th.
10th.
And now they're saying, I think, what did he say, the 25th for ABC?
Said Fox the 4th,
Mhm.
something,
NBC
something,
the
and then
10th,
the
ABC the
25th.
25th.
Okay.
And then CBS has a VP
in
debate.
Michigan recently, 25,000.
All right, wait, we're doing crowd size. Hogan,
Crowd size, baby.
Just couldn't get them in.
Yes.
We had in
We couldn't get him in.
Harrisburg 25,000
Yes.
people, and 20,000 people couldn't get in. We had so many. Nobody ever mentions that. When she gets 1,500
True.
people, and I saw it yesterday on ABC, where they said, oh, the crowd was so big. I have 10 times, 20 times, 30 times the crowd size. And no, they never say the crowd was big. That's why I'm always saying, turn around the cameras. I'm so glad you asked that. I think it's so terrible when you say, well, she has 1,500 people, 1,000 people, and they talk about, oh, the enthusiasm. Let me tell you, we have the enthusiasm. The Republican Party, and me as a candidate, but the Republican Party has the enthusiasm because people want to see crime stopped. They want to see a country that's respected. Think of it. If I were president, you wouldn't have Russia and Ukraine, where it never happened. 0 chance. You wouldn't have had October 7th of Israel. You wouldn't have the horrible withdrawal. And I don't mean the withdrawal because the withdrawal was fine. I was ready to withdraw from Afghanistan, and we were going to do it with dignity and
Hogan,
strength.
does he let people
And
call
we-
the end of
we
press
were
conferences,
keeping
or
our
it's always up to
equipment.
him?
We weren't leaving
Does he what?
$85 million worth of
Does
equipment
he
behind,
does
and
he
we
tell
wouldn't have
let a
had
staffer say
13
last
great
question,
soldiers. I know
or it's
the
always up to
families
him?
of those soldiers
Always
as
up to
well.
him.
We
Always
wouldn't
up
have
to
had
him.
these
Yeah.
soldiers
Yes.
killed, and we
All
wouldn't
right.
have had.
I'll warn our
45
affiliates right now.
45
We're going to go a little bit
soldiers
over.
obliterated.
Well,
He's obviously
um,
enjoying
no
this.
legs, no arms.
It's just funny when you had people come into the White House after we've been there for a while and kind of recommend things like this, and you're like, no, no, no. Like Sarah Sanders and I were always like, well, that's a good idea. I'd never thought of telling you not to tweet that. Thank you very much.
Now because they had to go back.
Yeah,
because
we know.
gasoline was going up to $7, $8, $9 a barrel. So they said, we better do what Trump. But the day after the election, if they won, you're going to have fuel prices go through the roof. Everybody's going to be forced to buy an electric car, which they're not going to do because they don't want that. It's got a great market. It's got a market. It's really a sub-market. People want gasoline-propelled cars. They want hybrids. They want to have everything, and they want electric. But they want everybody to have an electric car. We don't have enough electricity. We couldn't make enough electricity for that. And you know what else? The weight of a car, the weight of a truck. They want all trucks to be electric. Little things that a lot of people don't talk about. The weight of a truck is 2.5 times heavier. You would have to rebuild every bridge in this country if you were going to do this ridiculous policy. So,
Pete's got it. Don't worry about it.
In history, for any country, nobody's had crowds like I have, and you know that. And when she gets 1,000 people and everybody starts jumping, you know that if I had 1,000 people would say, that's the end of his campaign. I have hundreds of thousands of people. In South Carolina, I had 88,000 people. In Alabama, I had 68,000 people. Nobody says about crowd size with me. But she has
I'm subtracting points right now.
1,500 people, and they say, oh, the enthusiasm.
Well, that was the question.
No. The enthusiasm is with me and the Republican
We couldn't hear the
Party.
question.
He's answering the question.
They want to stop crime. They want to stop people from pouring into our country from places unknown and from countries
Back on
unknown.
message.
From
Back on.
countries that nobody ever heard of. That's where the enthusiasm.
Those are the worst immigrants, the ones who come from countries we've never heard of. They're the most dangerous because we haven't even heard of their countries.
Yeah, because everyone knows all the countries out there, Mark.
We know a lot of them.
Do they? Okay.
I don't know. I don't know if I can or not. I got him elected. Without me, he wouldn't be governor. I got him elected. He was doing terribly. I got him elected. With that being said, I hope we can repair it.
Which
but if we don't,
governor is that?
Hogan.
Oh,
and they're gonna
Georgia.
vote. We're
Oh,
leading in
Georgia.
Georgia by a lot.
Georgia.
Yeah.
We're leading in Pennsylvania by a lot. So, but I don't know. Now, in
Hogan, if you're in
Pennsylvania, I have
touch
great
with them, can you
relationships. In
get them
Georgia,
to
I do too,
mic
but
the?
unfortunately, not with the governor.
You tell
I've
them
never
they need to get a
understood
mic to the
when you get somebody
questioners.
elected, they're supposed to like you. He's not exactly.
Somebody tell
for some
them
reason,
to
and
give
you'll
the
have to ask him
questioners a
about
mic.
that. Yeah, I'd love to see.
I
it.
will right now.
I think that if we don't win Georgia, Georgia's
I'd
a
also
big,
like to
is a
know
big
which
win, is a big
outlets
state.
they're from.
So I won Alabama by a record. Nobody's ever gotten that many votes. I won South Carolina by a record. You don't win Alabama and South Carolina by records and lose Georgia. It doesn't happen. And the people of Georgia understand that. There was tremendous anxiety and problems in Georgia. A lot of people say, what happened? And we have to, all we want is honest elections. If we have honest elections in Georgia, we have honest elections in Pennsylvania, we're going to win them by a lot.
I texted him. Somebody.
Well, he actually said it two ways. First, he said it incorrectly, then he corrected himself. Do you agree with that, right? You know, if you watch him, he said it two ways. No. I mean, he said it two ways because he doesn't really know what he's saying. Why didn't he bring it up at the debate? You know, he had a chance for 90 minutes to bring it up at the debate. He could have talked about that at the debate, and he didn't do it. Everyone said, oh, he said this and he said that. He's just, you know, they give him something to read off. He read it very badly because he actually said it the opposite. Then he had to go back and correct himself. He said the opposite. He should have brought
Anybody
this
know
up
what the
at
topic
debate.
is?
If he had a problem, of course there'll be a
Something
peaceful
Biden
transfer.
said at
There
the
was
debate,
last time,
obviously.
And there'll be
Or
Something
didn't
Biden
say.
didn't say in the
just hope we're
debate.
going to have
Right.
honest elections. That's all. Okay.
Oh, I bet it was something about what Biden told Robert Costa about the transition.
Yeah.
What a stupid question this is.
On message.
Because
On
I'm
message,
leading
yeah.
by a lot and because I'm letting their convention go through and I am campaigning a lot. I'm doing tremendous amounts of taping here. We have commercials that are at a level I don't think that anybody's ever done before. Plus, in certain cases, I see many of you in the room where I'm speaking to you on phones, I'm speaking to radio, I'm speaking to television. Television's coming over here. Excuse me, what are we doing right now? She's not doing any news conference. You know why
Yes.
she's not doing it? Because she can't do a news conference.
There.
She doesn't know how to do a news conference. She's not smart enough to do a news conference. And I'm sorry, we need smart people
Biggest
to lead
crowds,
this country
leading
because
the
our
polls,
country's never
most
been in
press
this danger
conferences.
before,
Case
both
closed.
economically and from an outside perspective. Russia doesn't respect us anymore. China doesn't respect us anymore. North Korea, Kim Jong-un, liked me a lot. He doesn't like this group. We are in great danger. We're in
sure that's
great
something to
danger of
brag
being in
about.
World
Fact
War
check
III.
true.
That could happen. No, after their convention, yeah. And I'm going out. Actually, I'm going out to certain places to help certain senators get elected. Not even for me. I'm trying to help when I go out to Wyoming or when I go out to Montana, or I'm going to different places to help people. And I don't have to go there because I'm leading those states, as you know, by 35, 40, 50 points. I'm leading by record numbers. I'm going because I want to help senators and congressmen get elected. Congressmen and women get elected. Yes, please. Yeah, go ahead. The upcoming what? Oh, yeah.
Joy is the
Yeah,
word I
Elon
think
Musk.
of.
So, yeah, sure. So Elon called me. As you know, he endorsed me full-throated. Great endorsement. I respect Elon a lot. He respects me. And not easy for him to endorse, to be honest with you. You know, it takes courage to endorse people. Many people have courage and many people don't. He does have courage. And Elon endorsed me, and he asked me whether or not I'd do a show on Monday, and I think it's going to be Monday night. And I believe he's the host of the show. So it'll be very interesting. A lot of people are talking about it. I look forward to it. That'll be done on Monday night.
I mean,
A lot of people are talking about that.
Many
That's
people
true.
are saying that I can tell
many
you.
people. That I
Well,
can
you have
tell
a
you.
lot of misinformation spread about China, and you have a lot of misinformation spread about a lot of different places. I think I'm going to get along great with China. President Xi of China and I were very good friends. We met right here, right in that, except we had a beautiful sofa there, as opposed to what we have right now. Right now we have you. But President Xi and I had a very good relationship until COVID. And I held him responsible for COVID. It broke up our relationship. But I think
I was
we're
in
gonna have
that
a great
room with President
relationship.
Xi and him
And I think it's going to be
overseas.
mutually
It
beneficial.
was something else.
But we cannot have it where China is taking advantage of the United States, and that's what they were doing,
gotta
as you
play
very well
around.
know. Yes, please. What's your question? No, I think the people that, if you look at January 6th, which a lot of people aren't talking about very much, I think those people were treated very harshly when you compare them to other things that took place in this country.
Ties
A
with
lot of people
bacon.
were killed. Nobody was killed on January 6th. But I think that the people of January 6th were treated very unfairly. And they were there to complain, not through me. They were there to complain about an election. And, you know, it's very interesting. The biggest crowd I've ever spoken to, and I said peacefully and patriotically, which nobody wants to say, but I said peacefully and patriotically. The biggest crowd I've ever spoken to, and you've seen, Maggie, I was at the mall. I was at the Washington Monument. I was at the whole thing. I had crowds. I don't know who's ever had a bigger crowd than I have, but I had it many times. The biggest crowd I've ever spoken before was that day. And I'll tell you, it's very hard to find a picture of that crowd. You see the picture of a small number of people relatively going to the Capitol, but you never see the picture of the crowd. The biggest crowd I've ever spoken, I've spoken to the biggest crowds. Nobody's spoken to crowds bigger than me. If you look at Martin Luther King, when he did his speech, his great speech, and you look at ours, same real estate, same everything, same number of people, if not, we had more. And they said he had 1 million people, but I had 25,000 people. But when you look at the exact same picture, and everything's the same because it was the fountains, the whole thing, all the way back to from Lincoln to Washington, and you look at it, and you look at the picture of his crowd, my crowd, we actually had more people. They said I had 25,000, and he had 1 million people, and I'm okay with it because I liked Dr. Martin Luther King. Yeah, please.
I'm okay with it.
There's too much to unpack on that one. Hogan, what's your over under? Will this end by 250?
Yeah, sure.
No.
We have a constitution. It's a very important document, and we live by it. She has no votes, and I'm very happy to run against her. I'm not complaining from that standpoint. And I hate to be defending him, but he did not want to leave. He wanted to see if he could win. They said, you're not going to win. After the debate, they said, you're not going to win. You can't win. You're out. And at first they said it nicely, and he wasn't leaving. And then you know it better than anybody. Wait a minute. So when you think about it, they said at first they were going to go out to another vote. They were going to go through a primary system, a quick primary system, which it would have to be. And then it all disappeared, and they just picked a person that was the first out. She was the first loser, okay? So we call her the first loser. She was the first loser when during the primary system. During the Democrat primary system, she was the first one to quit, and she quit. She had no votes, no support, and she was a bad debater, by the way, very bad debater. And that's not the thing I'm looking forward to, but she was a bad debater. She did obviously a bad job. She never made it to Iowa. Then for some reason, and I know he regrets it, you do too, he picked her, and she turned on him too. She was working with the people that wanted him out. But the fact that you can get no votes, lose in the primary system, in other words, you had 14 or 15 people, she was the first one out, and that you can then be picked to run for president, it seems to me actually unconstitutional. Perhaps it's not. Please. So I've run against Hillary, and I've run against various other people. I would say that in terms of intelligence, Hillary was far superior. I would say that. Hillary was smart. She was her own worst enemy in many ways, but she was smart, very smart. Okay? If you ask me to compare them, please.
Melissa, fact check those two. Both of those are true, right?
You know, I don't disagree with what he said. I think that Hillary Clinton is one of the smartest politicians in my lifetime. And in the
also her own worst
Party.
Enemy. She shouldn't have
would you repeat that
her
question?
server with a mallet.
You have to speak up. It's a hard room because it's very big. If you so this is worth $18 million.
Hogan, which room is that? Hogan, which room is that?
What did you say?
What room is that?
I can't tell from there. It looks like the
Is it ballroom or not?
It look not the big ballroom. No, it looks like the room there by the pool.
The abortion issue has been very much tempered.
The white room.
And I
can't tell because of the flags in place.
Much less of an issue, especially for those.
It's big though. I know that for a fact, Mark.
As you know. And
thank you.
I think
the beautiful room. I know that too.
For 52 years, they wanted to bring abortion back to the states. They wanted to get rid of Roe v. Wade, and that's Democrats, Republicans, and independents, and everybody, liberals, conservatives, everybody wanted it back in the states, and I did that. Now the states are voting, and frankly, some of the votes are much more, if you could say, liberal than you would think. Ohio turned out to be, they had a big vote, and it turned out to be a much more liberal standing than people would have thought. Kansas, the same thing, and then you have Texas, and you have other places where it may be different. But the issue has been brought back to the states now. And like Ronald Reagan, I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. I believe strongly. I think that that's a very important thing. I think when you have to follow your heart. But when you don't believe in the exceptions, I think it's much tougher. It's a much tougher issue. But about 82% of Republicans do believe in exceptions. I think and a lot of them are changing their mind and coming even further. I think that abortion has become much less of an issue. It's a very small, I think it's actually going to be a very small issue. What I've done is I've done what every Democrat and every Republican wanted to have done, and we brought that issue back to the states. And now the states are voting on it. And frankly, some of the votes are a lot different than people would have thought, but it's the vote of the people is taking care of it. And, you know, when you think about the Democrats are really the radical ones on this because they're allowed to do abortion on the 8th and 9th month and even after birth. If you look at your new governor from Minnesota, He's
Here we
talking
go.
about, he's like the governor previous, the former governor. I don't want to get him mixed up because Glenn is doing a good job and he's leading our whole campaign in Virginia, Glenn Youngkin. But previous to Glenn, the governor, he said, the baby will be born. We will put the baby aside and we will decide with the mother what we're going to do. In other words, whether or not we're going to kill the baby. The Minnesota gentleman, this guy agrees with that. He is the most liberal. Look, between her and him, there's never been anything like this. There's never been a combination. So I'll use the word progressive. You know, they want to go progressive. They don't like the word liberal. I like liberal better. I think it's more appropriate because nobody knows what progressive means. But they now like to use the word progressive. But there's certainly never been anybody so liberal like these two, or even close. I think the abortion issue has been taken down many notches. I don't think it's a big factor anymore, really. And when people hear what I said in the debate, and I think I said it very well during the debate, we brought it back to the states. Everybody wanted it in the states. And very importantly, and you think about this, assuming you have exceptions. If you don't have exceptions, it's a more difficult thing. At the same time, there are people that strongly feel that way, and you have to follow your heart, and you should follow your heart. But that issue is very much subdued. Yeah, thank you.
What did you say?
He never knows when to stop talking.
About who?
No.
Yes. No, I didn't. Look, if you take away guns, she wants to take away everyone's gun. If you take away guns, can't do it because people need the guns for protection. Now, entertainment, they want it, hunting, they want, different things. But they need weapons for protection in this country. People live out in the woods and they're not going to have a gun. If you look at some countries, I don't want to get them in trouble, but some countries have actually gone the opposite way. They had very strong gun laws, and now they have gone the opposite way, where they allowed people to have guns, where in one case they encouraged people to go out and get guns, and crime is down 29%. And remember this, what is the toughest gun law in the United States? Chicago. On July 4th, 117 people were shot and 17 died. The toughest gun laws in the United States are in the city of Chicago. You know that. They had 117 people shot. Afghanistan does not have that. Afghanistan, by the way, was the lowest point in the history of our country, in my opinion. That was the worst embarrassment to the history of this country, and I say Putin would not have gone into Ukraine if that didn't happen. When he saw the incompetence of Milley and all these guys that are incompetent, when he saw that happen, when they took out the soldiers first, they took out the soldiers first. You know, if you go back and check your records, for 18 months, I had a talk with Abdul. Abdul was the leader of the Taliban, still is. But I had a strong talk with him. For 18 months, not one American soldier was shot at or killed, but not even shot at. 18 months, and then we had the disaster of the lift, where people were falling off airplanes from 3 times the height of the World Trade Center. I mean, terrible. But now our country has to be respected again. Please. Go ahead, please.
There was reporting, I believe, in the New York Times that Kamala Harris said she might be open to the idea of a weapons embargo against Israel. I wonder if you comment on that.
I'd be against that. That Kamala is in favor of not giving Israel weapons? Yeah. That's what I hear. Look, she's been very, very bad to Israel, and she's been very bad to Jewish people. And I say it, if anybody I know is Jewish and they would vote for Kamala over me, they should have their head examined. If you think about it, I gave them Golan Heights. I gave them the capital of Israel, Jerusalem. I even built the embassy.
I gave them Golan Heights.
I gave them no Iran deal. The problem is they didn't do anything with it. Iran was broke. We could have made a deal so easily. I would have had a deal done within 1 week after the election with Iran. Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. It's very simple. We would have gotten along with Iran. I was looking forward to it. I was fine with Iran. You know, we hit them a couple of times pretty hard, but we would have been fine with Iran. But I terminated that deal. I got them the Abraham Accords. Everyone said that's impossible. I got them the Abraham Accords. she's been very, very bad to Israel, and she's been very bad and disrespectful to Jewish people. And any Jewish person that votes for Kamala and her friend, her new friend, who I don't know if she knew him before, but I don't think he's too good. But anybody that votes for them, if you're Jewish or if you love Israel, you have to have your head examined. Go ahead, please.
Hogan, is that good rhetoric? Is that the best way to say that?
They have. The FBI came to see me about the shooter. I think they've done a very good job.
You got 4 minutes until 2:50, by the way.
A very good job with respect to this.
Is that good rhetoric to say if you're crazy if you're a Jew and you vote for Harris? Is that good rhetoric?
I think pointing out how bad the Democrat Party has become and the anti-Semitism strain in there.
But is that the way you say it?
Is important for him to point out.
Is that the way you'd say it?
I'm not at the microphone.
Well, in fact, I went down in a helicopter with him. Maybe this is a
New York
helicopter.
This is a New York story, Mark.
Location together.
Ed Koch
there was an emergency landing.
Said Jews would be crazy to vote for Jesse Jackson.
He was a little concerned.
That is what, in my view, that this is he's got this somewhere in his head. That was Ed Koch's specific line. Jews would be crazy to vote for Jake. He's saying you should have your head examined to vote for Kamala Harris.
But he was not a fan of hers very much. At that point.
Campaigns, we always talk about the gumball theory. Think of a candidate as a gumball machine.
Yeah, I do.
You put the gumball in, it's coming out sooner or later. Each thought, it's coming out. You don't know when. It may not be the best time, but it's coming out sooner or later. So if you don't want it in his head or her head, don't put it in there.
I'm going to actually have
sooner or later that thing's will open and that gumball is going to come trickling out whether you want it to or not.
But Florida does have a vote coming up on that. And I think probably the vote will go in a little more liberal way than people thought. But I'll be announcing that at the appropriate time. Please.
I wonder if that was abortion or marijuana. I think it was about one of those. All right, Hogan, you got 2 more minutes. Then I'm going to give you a new deadline. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, we gave you tremendous for child care and all of that. No, our tax cuts, which are the biggest in history, our tax cuts are coming due, as you know, very soon. And if the Democrats don't renew them or make it impossible to renew because it's pretty close in terms of vote, if they don't renew them, it's the equivalent of having a 4 times tax increase from what you have right now, and it'll destroy the economy. I think they're under tremendous pressure to do it. I've never seen, all my life I grow up and I watch politics, and I used to be on the other side of politics first, then I run for office. But in all the years of studying politics, I've never seen people get elected by saying, we're going to give you a tax increase. These guys get up, think of it. We're going to give you no security. We're going to give you a weak military. We're going to give you no walls, no borders, no anything. All these things they're doing. I mean, the transgender became such a big thing. But they do all of these things, but they always say, we're going to give you a tax increase. I never heard anybody campaign on a tax increase. A politician has always said, I will cut taxes. I'll give you one example. Social Security. They're going to destroy Social Security. I am going to leave Social Security. I'm not raising the years. I'm not raising the age. I will be saving Social Security, and I'm going to work it out that there's no tax on Social Security for seniors. I'm also doing no tax on tips. No tax on tips. So waiters, waitresses, caddies, people that drive cars, people that get tips who have been harassed by this government, we're going to have no tax on tips. That's a big thing. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Sure.
Yeah.
Because other people have done far bigger things than Steve Bannon. Sure, it's politically motivated. I think it's a horrible thing they did. Look, they've weaponized government against me. Look at the Florida case. It was a totally weaponized case. All of these cases, by the way, the New York cases are totally controlled out of the Department of Justice. They sent their top person to the various places. They went to the AG's office, got that one going. Then he went to the DA's office, got that one going, ran through it. No, this is all politics, and it's a disgrace. Never happened in this country. It's very common that it happens, but not in our country. It happens in banana republics and third world countries, and that's what we're becoming. We have no borders. We have bad voting regulations. Anytime you have mail-in ballots, you're going to have problems. France learned that lesson. You know, France had all mail-in voting, and they went back to paper ballots.
Back to trashing mail-in
voter
voting.
identification, voter ID. They went back to a normal system, one-day voting. They don't want to be around, you know, voting for 64 days. And look, the election, I keep talking about November 5th, but the election really starts on September 6th. That's when it starts because it's early voting. We should have one-day voting. We should have paper ballots. We should have voter ID, and we should have proof of citizenship. Please.
What were you saying?
No, the gentleman in back.
250, Mark.
For who?
252.
I see it.
You're going to have to talk louder, sir.
Kamala Harris would never do
Elon
this.
Is a very different kind of a guy. He's a very big believer in the country, but he's very worried about the country. He's very worried about the country. And I don't know if it's good for him politically to have supported me, although I think we have a vast majority of this country does support me. But Elon, more than almost anybody I know, I mean, he loves this country. He loves the concept of the country. But like me, he says this country is in big trouble. It's in tremendous danger. Okay, please. I like this guy. I like him. Yeah. The polls have suggested. There are some polls that say we're going to win in a landslide.
So we are in a changed world. MSNBC and CNN are still taking this spot. They wouldn't have done this before.
They go into the grocery store. They're paying 50, 60, 70% more for food than they did just a couple of years ago. Look at what's happened to energy. Look at what's happened not only to their cars, where gasoline's gone from $1.87, and we had moments when it was below that. But it's gone from $1.87 to $5, $6, and $7. And they take the strategic national reserves and they take it out, even though it's peanuts compared, it doesn't last long. But they're virtually empty now. We've never had it this low. And he's using that to keep the gasoline prices as low as possible. He's sucked all of the oil out, essentially the gasoline, to keep the price down a little bit, and it's had very little impact. But you know what? We have no strategic national reserves now. He's emptied it. It's almost empty. It's never been this low. And I had it at a good level, and I would have had it more if the Democrats would have approved the deal. You know, I had a deal to buy it at $22 a barrel, and now it's going to be close to 100 pretty soon, my opinion. And the Democrats didn't want to do that, but we bought a lot anyway. And we had it pretty good. And what they've done to the national reserves, the strategic national reserves, is, as you know very well, because you cover it, but what they've done is incredible. They've just, for the sake of getting some votes, for the sake of having gasoline, you know, that's meant for wars. It's meant for, like, tragedy. It's not meant to keep a gasoline price down so that somebody can vote for Biden, or in this case, Kamala, who, by the way, is worse than Biden. And she's actually not as smart, okay? She's actually not as smart. That's hard to believe, isn't it? Yeah, please. Okay.
There are other things the federal government could do, not just a ban. Would you direct your FDA, for example, to...
So here's an email from a Republican. Rambling, redundant, unfocused. Wait till in love with himself. He's not winning votes with this presser. I'll vote for him because she would be worse.
Humane. But you have to be able to have a vote, and all I want
You're
to do is give everybody
you're also
a vote.
presupposing
and
the
votes
goal.
are taking place right now as we speak. Yeah.
Yes, but we'll talk about that.
There are many things on a humane basis that you can do outside of that, but you also have to give a vote, and the people are going to have to decide. Okay, yes, please. You. On what? No, I think she's actually not as smart as he is. I don't think he's very smart either, by the way. I'm not a big fan of his brain. But I think that she's actually not as smart as he is.
Great.
Well, she's a woman. She represents certain groups of people. But I will say this, when people find out about her, I think she'll be much less. And I see it right now. I see her going way down in the polls now. Now that people are finding out that she destroyed San Francisco, she destroyed the state of California along with Governor Gavin Newsom. He's been a terrible governor, terrible. But they did it together. And she was early. I mean, she was the first of the prosecutors, really. You know, now you see Philadelphia, you see Los Angeles, you see New York, you see various people that are very bad. But she was the first of the bad prosecutors. She was early.
Polls wrong, or never try to do that?
Do what?
Don't say your. Did you ever say don't say your head in the polls when you're not, because it'll hurt your credibility? Did you ever say that to him?
No, you. Would you repeat her? What you
Well, I mean, he cited some polls earlier that said he was ahead. I don't know what polls he's looking at, but you know.
Well, but he's not.
CNBC has him ahead. That's it. This morning, CNBC had him.
He said Rasmussen too.
A daily press briefing? Why would I do that? I would give you all the press briefings you want. Look what I'm doing here. But why would I do a daily press? You'd get tired of me very fast. No, but I will give you total access, and you'll have a lot of press briefings, and you'll have from me. Now, are you talking about from me or from a press secretary? Well, yeah, probably they'll do something. If it's not daily, it's going to be a lot. You'll have more than you want. Yeah, please. I don't think it's appropriate for me to talk about it. I think it's a tragic story. You want to know the truth. And I felt that with Hillary Clinton, too. You know, with Hillary Clinton, I could have done things to her that would have made your head spin. I thought it was a very bad thing. Take the wife of a president of the United States and put her in jail. And then I see the way they treat me. That's the way it goes. But I was very protective of her. Nobody would understand that, but I was. I think my people understand it. They used to say, lock her up, and I'd say, just relax, please. We won the election. I think it would be very, I think it would have been horrible for our country and we had her between the hammering of all of the files. And don't forget, she got a subpoena from the United States Congress. And then after getting the subpoena, she destroyed everything that she was supposed to get. I thought it was so bad to take her and put her in jail, the wife of a president of the United States, and then when it's my turn, nobody thinks that way. I thought it was a very terrible thing. And she did a lot of very bad things. I'll tell you what, she was pretty evil. But in terms of the country and in terms of unifying the country, bringing it back, to have taken her and to have put her in jail, and I think you know the things as well as I do. There were some pretty bad acts that she did. I think it would have been very bad for our country. And a lot of my people, a lot of the MAGA, as they call them, but the base. And I think the base is 75% of the country, far beyond the Republican Party, because we're a party of common sense, and I'm a person of common sense. I want to have low taxes. I want to have strong borders. I want to have a strong military so that China and Russia, look, they've allowed China and Russia to do the impossible combined. They're natural enemies. They always have been, because China needs more land and Russia has it. They've always been natural enemies, and because of Obama, it started with him, and then Biden, because he didn't know what the hell he was doing, they've now become one force. And then now they're adding Iran to it, and they're adding North Korea to it. Pretty powerful force. This is something that is unthinkable that they allowed to happen.
Hogan, do you have a caffeinated pop you can grab from the fridge?
No, I was going to do another coffee, but no. And I have to go in a second anyway.
All right. Well, before you go, if you do need to go, first I'll tell us what time it's going to end.
Look, she's got a little period.
Oh, wait, hold on. Listen to this. Hold on, I got to hear this. Good enough.
It's about policy. It's not about her. I think she's incompetent because I've watched her. She destroyed California. She destroyed San Francisco. Everything she's touched has turned to bad things. I'm not going to use foul language, but everything she's touched has turned bad. She's incompetent. The reason she's not doing what I do and she's not doing what she should be doing, she won't even do interviews with friendly people because she can't do better than Biden. Now, he had a reason for not doing well, and he was never, 25 years ago, the sharpest or brightest bulb in the ceiling. That I can tell you, okay? He wasn't. But he could do interviews at least. Not lately, he couldn't, perhaps. But she should be doing interviews. She doesn't want to do interviews. And the reason she doesn't is, number one, her policies are so bad. Just to answer your question, I think that it's not going to change because it's really ultimately not about her as much as about her policies. She wants open borders. She wants to defund the police. She wants to defund the police. She wants to take away your guns. Anybody that thinks they're not going to come after your guns, you know, when I was president, I totally protected the guns. And I think it's very important. And I know I take some heat sometimes for it, but you have to have safety. You have to have, when the bad guy walks in with a gun, you got to have some way of protecting yourself. And boy, that would be, you would see crime go up at levels that you've never seen. When people say on this side of the house, this house has guns, we will use the guns, they say, let's pass. We'll go someplace else. You have to have them. And for 4 years, and you know, as you know, the NRA endorsed me very powerfully every time I ran, every time. My sons are members, and I guess indirectly I'm a member too. But they gave me the strongest of endorsements, and that's against very strong competition. People that, you know, felt the same way. No, you have to have that right. Our Second Amendment is a very important right, and it has to be protected. Okay, how about you? Go ahead. Yeah.
Hogan, how much longer is this?
I gotta go. It's gonna be at least
there are
10
some of the
minutes.
most brilliant people on
All right,
Wall
before you
Street that
go,
are saying that
after the next, hold on. After this, I want you to
President
discuss
Trump
your overall
doesn't
thoughts
win,
before you go.
you're going to have a depression. I happen to agree. I think that's true. Because I know how bad these people are. You know, they like to say that they did this and that. You saw the $7 trillion that they said it was me for $7 trillion. It wasn't me. It was them. They said that I had inflation. They took over 9% inflation. No, I had 1% inflation. I had actually no inflation because if you look at the categories, we had just about no inflation. But I had a very minor, I actually had a positive inflation. It was a perfect number because you don't want zero. I mean, I'm not going to give you a whole course on economics, but you don't want zero. 1%, 1.4% is great. You want a little bit because you don't want to have deflation. Deflation is, in many ways, even worse. I had a perfect number right around the 1% number. It was perfect. And to show you, it stayed there for 2 years.
September 10th
and then he did
debate
all
is
of
agreed
the
to
different
by both
borrowings
campaigns.
that he did.
Good.
And then
ABC.
he did so many things wrong. Every time he would do it, I'd say, big mistake. And don't forget, they sell hats and they sell stories. Trump was right about everything. I have been right about a lot. Yes, Maggie.
Back to Maggie.
Maggie gets multiple questions because she is the Trump whisperer.
All right. Did you have something for me?
Just like thumbs up, thumbs down on overall
like other people do, and it's always complicated. And
Well, it's a
very
thumbs up
controversial.
from the standpoint of
And we
he's
have
trying to get
commissions
people to
that-
understand he's not
and
afraid to
respected
take questions,
people,
whereas
many of the
Kamala
people
Harris
wanted
is.
to
We're
raise-
18 days into
and they would
this.
recommend to me,
He refused to
certain
have
parties
any
for
kind of
certain-
interaction
some
with the
people were
press
treated
because
very
we all
harshly.
know how bad she is at this. The same press
A
said that
fantastic
she wanted her,
woman.
they wanted her
She
off the
served 24
ticket
years
3
for
weeks
being
ago.
on a phone call
Now they're
having
saying
to do
she's
with
the best
drugs.
vice president ever, the best candidate ever. Oh, and by the way, she's a moderate, even though she hasn't changed a single position publicly whatsoever. And when you thought she had the chance to pick Shapiro and put the exclamation point on the "Hey, I'm moderating" claim, she goes back and picks the very guy who has implemented her radical checklist and wish list of things she'd like to do. He did it all in Minnesota. So,
All right, hold on one second. I just want to hear what he's saying for a second.
Well, for the most part, I think they did. I mean, they did. They go through. They went through. I had a commission. It was a very important commission to me, and highly respected people. And frankly, they came up with some decisions that I wouldn't necessarily agree with, but I did it. But I let a lot of people out that had no representation. I went to people in jails, in prison that we respected. I said, how many of these people should be let out? We let out large groups of low-income people.
Now, this is confusing.
That were serving like
He
40
said
years
the
for something that
NBC
today
debate
you
was on
wouldn't
the 10th.
even be put in jail for.
But ABC says their debate is on the 10th.
We had
Whatever.
very few people let out because
Whatever.
I said,
Okay.
I really don't
point
wanna
is,
let
he's
people
doing
out
it. He'll
where
be
they
there
had
on both days.
a
Don't
lot
worry
of
about it.
violence, where they had killing, et cetera, et cetera. And for the most part, we didn't do that. Yeah, please.
All right.
All right, Hogan, thanks for joining, dude. We'll see you soon.
Yeah, sorry. I'll be at the next one. All right, guys.
Okay.
Enjoy.
Bye.
On defense?
Thank you.
Federal Reserve. Right. Well, look, the Federal Reserve is a very interesting thing, and it's sort of gotten it wrong a lot. And he's tending to be a little bit late on things. He gets a little bit too early and a little bit too late. And, you know, that's very largely it's a gut feeling. I believe it's really a gut feeling. And I used to have it out with him. I had it out with him a couple of times very strongly. I fought him very hard. And, you know, we get along fine. We get along fine. But I feel the president should have at least say in there. Yeah, I feel that strongly. I think that in my case, I made a lot of money. I was very successful. And I think I have a better instinct than, in many cases, people that would be on the Federal Reserve or the chairman. Yeah.
People going to prison for marijuana.
Yeah.
Harris supports rescheduling marijuana and also says that no one should go to prison for marijuana offense. Do you agree with those positions?
Well, as we legalize it, I start to agree a lot more because, you know, it's being legalized all over the country. Florida has something coming up. I'll be making a statement about that fairly soon. But as we legalize it throughout the country, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, it's awfully hard to have people all over the jails that are in jail right now for something that's legal. So I think, obviously, there's a lot of
sounds like he's going to come out
there.
in favor of marijuana legalization in Florida now. I think DeSantis is against it. I'm pretty sure.
Well, you'll have to ask her that question because she's the one that said it. I didn't say it. So you'll have to ask her, and I very much appreciate that question, but you'll have to ask her. But I've known her for a long time. I actually contributed to her campaign a long time ago because I was a developer. I contributed to lots of campaigns of Democrats, Republicans, and some were liberal and some were conservative. But you'll have to ask her about that. But to me, it doesn't matter. But to her, from her standpoint, I think it's very disrespectful to both, really. Whether it's Indian or black, I think it's very disrespectful to both. To me, it doesn't matter. Please, red dress.
We kind of minimized it. All right, MSNBC's dumping
pretty much recovered, yeah. I'm a fast healer.
CNN is dumping out because they're still, they got anchors talking, kind of like us.
Pretty much recovered. No, it didn't hit that. I got very lucky. It just hit the lobe, as they call it.
If you want to get in the post-game show at 5:30 when this ends, raise your hands.
On top.
All right, CNN's out. They're in commercial. MSNBC is still in Big Little Box. I bet you. Let's see. Fox still fully on it.
Well, we're starting that, yeah. We are going to start the largest mass deportation in the history of our country because we have no choice. It's not sustainable. And we are going to start with violent criminals, and we're going to start then with criminals. And our local police is going to work with us because they know everything about the people. They know their names. They know everything about them. They know their middle name. They know their numbers. And as you know, the other side is trying. You know, look, for years I wondered, why are they allowing these people to come in at levels like this? It was incredible. And I said two reasons. They're either really stupid, and I don't believe they're stupid, because anybody that can cheat in elections like they cheat is not stupid. Or, in the alternative, they have bad motives or they hate our country. And I used to think they hate our country. But lately I've seen where they're trying to sign these people up to vote. And they have to stop. They cannot let illegal immigrants vote in this upcoming election. All right, one more question.
One more question. Again, if you want to get in the post game, please raise your hands. Make it a good one. I agree.
Right. We have so many ways of making money in this country. We're not going to affect our Social Security. We're not changing it. And I proved that over 4 years. And we're going to do it. It's very unfair to people. They spend their life and they're great citizens and they pay in. We're not going to charge tax to Social Security, the seniors. We're not going to do it. We're not going to charge. And also tax. I say the two things. We're going to have no tax on seniors, Social Security, and we're going to have no tax on tips. Very simple. And we are a country that has so many different ways to make money. We have we have under our feet more liquid gold, I call it oil and gas, than any country in the world, much more than Saudi Arabia, much more than Russia. We have so many different ways we can make money. We're not going to hurt our seniors with Social Security, and we're not going to charge them tax, okay? We should not have sanctuary cities. Sanctuary cities is a way of protecting criminals, and we should not have sanctuary cities. And if you go to California, and I know it well, I have property out there, great property. If you go to California and you ask the people of California, do they like the idea of sanctuary cities? They don't like it. They're tired of it. They're tired of crime. They're tired of what's happened to our country. Our country's become a crime-ridden mess, and we're going to stop it on November 5th. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. So MSNBC, CNN took most of it. Fox took all of it. We took all of it in our own unique mystery political science theater. All right. I'm going to start, and then Melissa, and then John, and then we're going to bring other folks in. Look, rambling, ridiculous, as Melissa, I think you pointed out, most people aren't watching this. But I think he accomplished three things that were I'm confident were part of their goals. One was he wants to get the debates going, right? Kind of like Biden needed a debate once upon a time. They need a debate now. And so he's made it harder for her to stall on debate about debates. Two, he had a press conference. He wants her to have a press conference. He wants to up the pressure on her to have one or to do an interview or whatever. And three, even though he talked about January 6th and he talked about how he doesn't like early voting, and he talked about how he doesn't like Governor Kemp, he talked a lot about the things they wanted to talk about. He talked about inflation and immigration and crime and America's role in the world, having a strong military, price of bacon. So those would be three things I think he accomplished. Maybe the public's not going to hear him talk about those things because they didn't watch it live and there's going to be coverage of those things. But he sent a signal to some Republicans that he could be vaguely on message. All right, Melissa.
No, I agree with a lot of what you just said. And no one's watching that press conference. This was the middle of the afternoon, however many people are on this call, and maybe some people who have it on in their desk, in their office, wherever they're sitting in this August afternoon. So what's the headline coming out of this? And the headline coming out of this is Trump challenges her to 3 debates. It looks like they've both agreed on the 10th. And that's a good headline for him. It at least shows him being aggressive. Prior to this, it looked like he was sort of ducking or playing games. Was he just trying to punt to Fox because he knew she wouldn't just agree to that? And so I think it puts him more on war footing, which is where he's more comfortable. And yes, he was rambling and sounded a little nuts at points, but he did, land a couple of punches on some issues that are bad for her. So maybe is this the beginning of a reset for Trump? We'll see. But I think the headline coming out of this is going to be accepts debate and challenges her to 2 more. So I think for that reason alone, it was a good press conference for him.
Yep. And again, I want to thank you. I want to crowdsource this. Somebody put it in the chat when you see it. I'm pretty sure he said ABC the 25th and NBC the 10th, but ABC says
he did.
Yeah,
but I think ABC misspoke because ABC just said they both accepted.
Yeah. So it looks like ABC and the 10th. We don't know about the other two. John, overall impressions besides that he rambled and no one watched but us.
So I think if you could take it and you could edit down, that whatever that was, 70 minutes to 10, he has all kinds of things that he could do that are winning messages, in my view. And this is the challenge for him, which is to get rid of what is extraneous and focus on taking it right to her on issues and on her liabilities. And it's just not clear to me listening to him that he knows the difference between what he wants to talk about and what will get him elected. And I think a lot of us forget where we are in the ideological or partisan spectrum, can see where her soft underbelly is or on various issues. And he hovers around them. And when he gets to them, he kind of hits it and then he pulls away and goes off somewhere else, very much like the convention speech. If this is the way his brain is functioning now, where he can't stick to press his advantage, I'm obviously he's running against someone. She's going to have to parry with him, and we'll see how that affects him. I did not think it was a very good performance. I think you're right that the headline is the headline, and that at least he did it. Yep. But I think he is showing his liabilities here, and those are liabilities, I have to say, of a person approaching 80. It's not the same. Yep. He's not the same person he was in 2016, and he is a person approaching 80. And so he had this inestimable advantage over the other guy who was over 80. And so he's going to have to deal with that. That's my general take.
All right, thank you. Chris Simmons, welcome. Tell us where you are, who you're supporting in the presidential race, and ask or comment away. And Christy Anderson, please turn on your camera. Go ahead, Chris. Thank you for joining.
I'm in Atlanta, and I'm supporting Harris. And I just want to make the observation that I think it's maybe a bit rich that people think that Kamala doesn't have enough smart people around her to anticipate how to respond to Trump's attacks on the 3 or 4 major issues where she has a weakness, and to think that she can't actually execute whatever the team comes up with against the guy whose own sister says he had to pay somebody to take his SAT. And maybe there's some unconscious bias at play here that somehow because she's a woman, because she's a minority, and this crap about her not passing the bar, she did pass the bar. California's got the hardest bar in the country. Lots of people don't pass the bar the first time, but I think this is part of this little. It's a dog whistle of a sort to try to say that the black woman didn't pass the bar. And I'm a Harvard guy, 2 degrees with a Mensa certificate on my wall. We know what that game is. I think America's going to find out that she's more than up to the task in a few weeks.
Chris, what do you think she's got going for her? What's the big advantage she has in this race?
Right now, I think her big advantage is the enthusiasm that a lot of people who are just tired of something, they want something other than Trump. If I were the smoke-filled guy, the guy in the smoke-filled room, would she have been my first choice? No. But I think people are saying it's better than seeing 4 more years of him and the crazy.
You think she's going to win Georgia?
Yeah, I think she's going to win Georgia. And I just want to say this, too. One of the reasons I think she's going to win Georgia, you cannot overestimate the extent to which Trump's performance at that Black Journalist Convention has riled up Black folk in Georgia. And for those of you who on this call regularly, make a distinction between people who are African American versus immigrant Blacks. African Americans whose grandparents grew up in this country have some very strong views about subtle racial attacks. That when you hear somebody from Jamaica or Africa or someplace else on this call, they don't get it. They don't feel the same way we do. He just ramped up Black voter turnout among African Americans tremendously with that stuff he did at that conference.
Chris, one more question for me, and then Melissa, if she's got any for you. Were you less enthusiastic about voting for Joe Biden?
Yeah. And even though I would never have voted for Trump, I could understand why some right-thinking people wouldn't vote for Biden after that debate performance. But now that, that issue is off the table. I was thrilled, like a lot of my friends are, when they basically got Biden not to run. And now, I just find it rich that somebody California doesn't have that many Black voters. So the Californians thought she was smart enough to be attorney general.
Yeah. They probably have. My guess is they have more Black voters than any state in the country, just because 1 in every 7 Americans lives in California. But
no, I
mean as a percentage.
I think you should check the Black voting percentage in California.
Okay.
I don't think it's near as
well,
high.
Percentage is lower, but I'm talking absolute numbers. She had.
But I'm just saying a predominantly white electorate voted her attorney general, so she can't be stupid.
Yeah.
And so we're very happy that it's her and not Joe. Yeah. I mean, I've met Joe. I had dinner with Joe and a small group of people a number of years ago. I like him. He's affable, but it was time for him to go. I mean, Kamala's going to be able to give 3 rebuttals to everything Trump says in the space of time it would have taken Joe to come up with the first thought at this point in his life.
You think she should do a press conference or a big interview, or avoid
it? I think she should, and I actually don't know why she's not doing them either, frankly.
Yeah. Melissa, any questions for Chris?
I agree with everything you just said. Is there anything that Donald Trump could do to get you to support him?
Oh, for me?
No, I'm just curious if you're a movable voter. But were you?
I mean, look.
Or were you always going to vote no matter what, even if it was Biden and you were holding your nose?
Look, I go back to what he did with the Central Park Five. Okay, I know who that man is.
Yep. All right,
John, you got any questions for Chris?
You're presuming that Kamala is going to do well in the interview or whatever press conference and in the debates, but a lot of us watched the 2019 election, watched her with the exception of her one good moment talking about busing against Biden, and have not been impressed by her as a public performer, and that was mirrored in her, until the last couple of weeks, really bad poll ratings. So what is it that gives you that confidence in her?
Yeah, I think Kamala's problem when she ran before was trying to get sort of break out from the pack of a lot of other good candidates. I don't think she ever really had a chance for the camera just to focus on her long enough for you to figure out that she's no dummy. And she's had 4 years to practice. I mean, she's had 4 years to learn about a bunch of stuff that maybe she didn't know about as much about back then. But I don't think she's the most authentic feeling candidate. And I think a lot of people criticize her. I mean, Hillary had that problem too. But I think a lot of it's veneer commentary on Kamala. I don't think it's substantive.
Chris, how'd you find out about two-way?
I'm a big fan of Smirkanish.
All right. Thank you, man. Thanks for joining. Come back regularly. Bring all your friends. Sorry, I unmute Steve. Thank you, Chris. Steve, go ahead.
Yes.
Steve, where are you from, Steve? Who are you supporting, please?
I'm from San Diego, California. I was a Republican for all my life until the man come down the escalator and the lies just kept on coming. They just roll on and on and on. They never stop. It's sort of, and today it was like a ping pong ball being shucking up in a box, or an Etch-a-Sketch that was being scrabbled around, or I like to think puke out of a puppy.
Steve, are you going to vote? Are you going to vote in the presidential race?
Oh, of course. I vote every single time. I was a Republican all my life. I voted every time for Republicans, but I'll never vote for
Kamala. Are you voting for Kamala Harris?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And who'd you vote for in 2016? Hillary?
I voted for Hillary.
Yeah, and you voted for Biden in 2020. And up until that point, you'd only voted for Republicans for president? You didn't vote for Obama?
I voted for everybody. I was brought up a Republican all my life from the Northeast Kingdom of Vermont.
Yeah. So, Steve, how do you think Vice President Harris is doing so far?
I think she's doing great. She needs to keep the momentum going. I'm in agreement that she needs to talk to the press a little bit more. And
why does she need to talk to the press?
Because it seems to be a sore spot for a lot of people. They feel as though that she's not being out there enough. And you got to get
real people. You think real people care about that?
Well, since I'm more of a political junkie, I think it's necessary. But you may have a point that maybe many people don't, and maybe many of her voters don't. But I think that it wouldn't hurt if she could get over some of these hurdles and snuff out the debate. About it.
Yep. Okay, Steve. Thank you very much. Thanks for joining. Melissa, you need to go soon. Anything you want to say before you go?
No, but I agree with that. I think that when there's an issue on the table, take it off the table. Why not? Go out, do a press conference. Don't let him look like he's on offense. I think that she can
Stop it.
be much more
See,
coherent
she's talking right now. She's saying,
than what
Hold on. Go
I think that
ahead.
she can be much more coherent and cogent than what we just watched for the last hour and a half. And so if I were advising her right now, I would say schedule the press conference just to take the issue off the table. And to your point, I don't think it's necessarily a real person issue, but you don't want the insiders and the media ganging up on her and making it become an issue and then that impacting the coverage.
Do you think if she wanted to do it, she'd overrule the staff? I know you may not know based on her, but like if the principal wants to do it.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And especially what we know of this principal, I don't think she has a problem overruling the staff.
Right. All right, Melissa, thank you for joining us. Always nice to see you.
Thank you for having me.
Jeff, unmute. Tell everybody, besides your Grammy nominations, tell everybody who you are, where you're from, and who you're supporting.
Am I unmuted?
You are.
Can you hear? All right, great. Yeah, well, I'm actually speaking now from Vancouver, BC, but I'm a Vermont resident, longtime California resident, completely voting for Kamala. Would have been voting for Joe, just because I can't vote the other way. Really, it's just too clear. And I guess I have a couple things to say. One is I try to compare what's happening now with what happened when Joe ran and won. It's kind of like back then, it was just so crazy. It felt like you were crawling into grandpa's lap to have him read you a bedtime story. That the actual emotion, the emotion of that was actually very real, I think. And I think that's one of the reasons why he won. And now when you look at what's happening now, you have, and you saw it in the press conference today, Donald leads with, fear and damnation, and it's all over. And I think that doesn't resonate. I mean, it does with some people, but cities aren't burning. Prices are a bit higher and the stock market's higher too, and all those different things, right? So it's not exactly what he portrays it to be. And I think that, the versus joy, hope, it's almost Obama redux now, right? In terms of that emotion. And you can see it. People people were afraid that Joe would have stayed in the game and would have voted like holding their nose. So there's this big sigh of relief. Plus, there's the younger cohort now that finally has something, I feel, to rally behind with this. And that's what you see. This energy that you see is that. It's like a dam that it broke a part of it out and off it flows. And this is what you're seeing now in terms of the hopefulness of it all. Now, that's sort of my emotional around it. But I have one other thing, sort of couple of questions. One is that little bit he was talking about with taking the Social Security tax off of seniors. That's not insignificant. I mean, if he actually, I hadn't heard that before, and maybe he's been saying that.
He's been talking about it for about a week, but not in a very prominent way.
Right. And I think that's an offset of they're going to get rid of Social Security or they're going to cut it or make, it's the opposite side of that. It's a strong point. It's not small I'm a senior and I'm on Social Security and I make enough money to where it gets taxed, so there's a bit of that. All right. And and first of all, I want to thank you, sir, for creating this forum of all sides. Your thing I wrote to you last night about this thing with Laura last night, Loomer, was fabulous. I mean, the way you kept,
thank you, Jeff.
It was great. The emotional aspect of it and the voice for everybody, I think, is really important. Okay, I have a thing. There's a lot of smart people on this call. Here's my last question. This thing with Netanyahu and the way he sort of like uses war to stay in power. I know there's an alliance there with Trump in some way, and I think there's something that's on the outside that's visible, but I guess I'd like to get some opinion of how much under the radar stuff is going on there, where they're a lot allied to create a war right as the election happens, all these other things like that. I thought, John.
Luckily, John's here to answer. I'll just say there's obviously tension now between Trump and Netanyahu, but I don't think there's any doubt who Netanyahu would like to have win. John, go ahead.
Right.
Well, Netanyahu would like to have Trump win because Kamala Harris is sucking up to the uncommitted voters in Michigan who want there to be a complete change in U.S. policy. Bibi and Trump have not had a friendly relationship since Bibi congratulated Biden on his victory, and Trump took that as a personal betrayal. There is no sotto voce relationship between Bibi and Trump. You got to put that out of your head. That's not true. For the first 2 months of the war in Gaza, Israelis and the Israeli government were unbelievably grateful to Biden and the Biden administration for its support. And Biden and the Biden administration started moving away from Israel, criticizing its tactics, questioning it. And now I think the real issue is not that they're going to start a war, because they're not trying to start a war. They're trying to end a war. And I don't want to get into like who's right and who's wrong here. They want to finish up in Gaza, and they are now in a position where they have every incentive to finish up in Gaza because they have no idea who's going to win. And they don't know whether if Kamala wins, they are going to be facing somebody more implacably hostile or not. I think they have reason to think that they are. And so the incentive now is to be incredibly vulgar, kill as many terrorists as you can, wherever you can, get done what you need to get done, and get finished, because January, November, you don't know what's going to happen after November. So I don't think anything is going on there that is intended to drive votes to or from. Bibi's got his own domestic political problems, and he doesn't have to worry about the United States, except to the extent that the United States is or is not going to be supportive of him. So that's my answer on that.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Jeff,
Sure.
Thank you so much for joining and for your kind words, and we love having you be part of this. Thank you. Patrick, unmute. Go ahead, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Patrick, tell us where you're from, who you're supporting in the race, and what's on your mind.
I am from Florida. Have lived in Arizona.
Free state of Florida.
Well, I remember I was hearing you guys talk the other day about like 2000 and how competitive or non-competitive the state was, and I fully was a completely different time. The Democratic Party gave up on its organization here. I'm a registered Republican. I am a John Podhoretz Republican, which has been stated here before. I wrote in Richard Nixon in 2016 and in 2020 because I figured a dead Nixon was better than either choice.
What about this? What about this time? What are you doing?
For the first time, I'm possibly maybe motivated to vote for Trump for foreign policy reasons. I was in the military for many, many years. I worked for the Defense Intelligence Agency for a lot of years. I deployed to Iraq a lot. I worked the Iran problem. I'm an Arab linguist, and right now we are as close to a regional war as we've been probably since 2001.
Do you think Donald Trump was a more successful foreign policy president than Joe Biden?
In terms of deterring Iran, yes.
What about overall?
Yes.
What has Biden failed to do that is unleashed Iran in your view?
So both he and his predecessors, who I worked under many administrations, but when I specifically worked under the Obama administration, they've continued to have. It dates back to the Clinton era. I suggest they have a talk with a man named Ken Pollack, who's a fantastic Iran scholar. This fascination that there are moderates in Iran that can somehow be worked with, which don't exist. It's a theocratic fascist dictatorship, and it's determined to crush the state of Israel. The United States will never.
What specifically has this president done that's failed to deter Iran? Iran?
This president is convinced that it can go back to the failed administration, the failed Obama administration policy of trying to sign some sort of agreement where we're going to give them money and they won't pursue a nuclear weapon, which they are going to do regardless. So
did either Bush 43 or Trump, when they were in president, deter the development of the Iran nuclear program?
The Bush administration let itself get distracted by the Iraq problem set, which forced it to dance a dance with Iran.
Right. So they did. Did Trump Did Trump's
Yes,
policies
yes, frankly,
retard the
yes,
development of nuclear
yes,
weapons?
yes.
What did
They
Trump
did.
do that
They did. They
retarded
did.
the development of nuclear weapons?
So first of all, let me speak in a nuanced way about the Bush administration. They did to a certain extent because there was a lot more pressure that was being put on the IRGC, specifically IRGC Quds Force, which is like their special forces guys, okay,
Yeah.
who run all these proxies around the region. For those who, I don't want to get lost in jargon. The Trump administration had the exact same policies as well. The killing of Soleimani, who when Hanwiyeh was killed, John, I heard on your podcast, I poured one out when Soleimani got killed. I have too many friends who were killed by shape charge weapons built by his networks, and those you're dealing essentially, in my opinion, with the equivalent of a mob family. They only understand violence. They only understand the threat of violence. There's no one to talk to in Iran to prevent them from cleansing Israel from to the sea. The United States will defend. Let me just, in my opinion, will defend Israel. There's a reason there's another carrier group there, and they're actually moving a lot of aircraft around to make it like there's more carrier group type assets out there. But we're this close to war with Iran because Iran has made the decision that this is the time to use Hezbollah and their proxy, their Houthi proxies in Yemen to try to like put the full court press in it on Israel. And
Patrick, I'm sorry to stop you, but
sure.
I'm super interested in this, but I don't want to run through all the history.
But anyway, it's this close to moving. I might vote for Trump.
Answer my Trump question though. Answer my Trump question. What did Trump do to deter? What did Trump's policies do? I'm not saying he didn't. I'm just asking you. What would you say he did to deter the development of Iranian nuclear capability?
He did not. He completely withdrew from the I forget what it's called, the joint pact of the Obama administration.
But did that
yes,
deter the Iranians?
we also used our full intelligence and military assets to again start countering IRGC in the region.
Yeah.
We have not been doing that since the Biden administration.
Okay. Stand by.
Yeah, can I add one?
Sure.
One quick point though, Ted. I think that was my main thought is that what Trump did was that he reimposed sanctions on Iran and impoverished Iran and made Iran have to make guns and butter choices about its nuclear program.
Yeah.
That was certainly retarded the development time. And what we do know from Tony Blinken, not our own Secretary of State, not from Israel or some website that claims it, that Iran over the last 3 or 4 years has advanced and sped up its ability to harvest plutonium, so that their breakout time is now, according to Blinken, 1 to 2 weeks. 1 to 2 weeks, and it was 18 months, we were told, when the JCPOA was struck. Trump was then president for 4 years. It's now 1 to 2 weeks, and they were not spinning the centrifuges during the Trump administration the way they have been under the Biden administration. That's a sort of commonly understood thing. So you may not. It's not that Trump stopped them, or Trump did, but Trump did not contribute to the development of Iran's nuclear capability, and arguably the Obama administration's policies and the Biden administration's policies have done so inadvertently. It's inadvertent, but you judge foreign policy outcomes not on what people want to have happen, which is peace and wonderful. But by results.
The other vulnerability the regime has that Trump went after that's not being gone after right now is the regime spends a lot of money on these proxies. So any sort of attritive capability on these proxies, they also value the proxies in and of themselves as regional allies. So those have not been threatened for 4 years, and they weren't threatened seriously for 8 years before that. So that's what in any case, I was never going to think about voting for Trump, but especially with the selection of Tim Walz, I was hoping that Josh Shapiro would lead to some sort of like road to Damascus moment, in terms of a statement of policy with Kamala regarding foreign policy, but it was the exact opposite.
Okay, let me ask you one more question. What's her biggest advantage, Vice President Harris's biggest advantage in this race?
She's young, younger than Trump.
Yeah, and you think that appeals to everybody, or young people, or just the vibe?
I think we've kind of seen this, what feels like a geriatric debate in this country for 8 to 10 years from a vibe standpoint, right? So her being younger, more agile, etc. But she's not displaying any of that with no interviews, with no press conferences, with nothing off the cuff.
Right. Okay. How'd you find out about two-way, Patrick?
Your Substack.
Okay. Thank you, man. Very good, generous of you to join and share all that expertise. Thank you. All right. It's 3:41. We've been together for an hour and 41 minutes. That seems like a lot. John, anything you want to say in closing?
Just say that remember that this is a jump ball election. It remains a jump ball election, and so anybody can win. And Trump had his moment here today, which you can rule as maybe being neither all that positive or all that negative. And she's really not being tested. So
yeah,
everything is good for her until
close.
she's tested.
Great, yeah, great point to make the close, because I mean, I can't tell you the number of Republicans and Democrats, but Republicans who've contacted me in the last day to say they think the race is over. He can't possibly win. She's the alternative, and he's got a ceiling. But I mean, we've seen so many twists already. I don't know how people can rule out twists, and also even taking the polls most favorable to her. She's not that far ahead. She's not as far ahead as Dukakis was over H.W. Bush. She's not as far ahead as Hillary was when she lost. So I'm just amazed that people are ready to declare this unpredictable race over, but we'll see. I will say she is younger. She does have the momentum, and she does have the media on her side. And she's running against a guy who tens of millions of Americans will never vote for under any circumstances. Those are some advantages. John, thank you for making time. Thanks to Melissa, Dave Urban, everybody who participated. Unlikely I'll be back later today, although I'll never rule it out, because there's some breaking news. I may summon everybody back and have you come, but certainly 9 a.m. tomorrow, morning meeting, America's Sweethearts, Sean and Tim, and I will be with you 9 a.m. Eastern time for the morning meeting. Grateful to you, whether you joined by YouTube or here on two-way. Extremely civil conversation, which I always appreciate. Thanks very much, everybody. We'll see you soon.